thank you guys for coming. We'll kick things off here formally. We are here to talk about 1987's Adventures in Babysitting. So I thought we could start as usual, just kind of go around, introduce yourself, and tell us what your relationship or lack of relationship is with this movie. Maybe we start with Lisa.
Yes, I really liked this film a lot when I guess I was probably 16 when I saw it. And I loved it so much. I had dreams about ending up on a blues stage and singing the blues with a band. And I actually had a band later on in life, but it was like, that was how I connected really hard with this film. And so, I mean, we can talk more about that later on, but that's my connection to it.
Cool. How about Jeremy?
Hey there. I'm gonna warn you guys, I'm in a mood. Okay. I'm feeling real weird. If anyone's listening to this later, for context, it is the weekend of January 23rd, and absolutely nothing interesting has happened in the country. But like, Adventures in Babysitting, I think, is gonna be weirdly tied in my memory. Do you know what I mean, Lisa?
Yeah.
Because like, I'm feeling like this is like a national tragedy, and this is the weekend I also saw Adventures in Babysitting. So like, it's a weird time to be a human talking about Adventures in Babysitting right now.
Really?
But to answer the question and not get all weird immediately, I always saw the poster. I always assumed it was like a sci-fi thing. I don't know why. For some reason, my brain Berenstein Bared like a Mega Man cannon on the shoe's arm. I could have sworn this was science fiction. And so then finally watched it a couple nights ago on Disney Plus, the edited version. I don't know if anyone else.
That's what I took a note of that.
Right. Lisa and I watched it. Like, this warning comes up being like, this has been modified for content, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And boy, did we find out, didn't we, Lisa?
Yeah.
Well, it was definitely, the words were dubbed in and they were not the right words.
Oh, no, they weren't. Well, the right words have not aged well at all. So
No.
That's true too. Yeah. Cool. So you're essentially fresh to it, aside from the poster.
Pretty fresh.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about Sarah?
This was just one of our childhood favorites, and that's why I invited my brother on. I don't remember the first time I saw it. I don't remember, like, all I remember is renting it often. Like, it was one that, you know, my brother and sister and I, it's like, you know, your parents would go out at night and the babysitter would come over and you'd get to rent a movie to watch with the babysitter. It's like, this would be one that we would always pick, you know, or if we were having friends over, having a slumber party, something like that, that would be the movie that we would want to rent. Yeah, so I don't know how old I was. What year did this come out?
87. Yeah.
87. Yeah, so it came out when I was, what, 9? So yes, I think I would have just been at the right age where it seemed cool, because it's like everybody was like older and in high school, and like, that was, you know, at the age of 9, that seems cool. That's the age you want to be, you know? And I feel like the movie's so much about adulthood, coming into adulthood. And like, I was just, you know, sort of that preteen stage. So for me, it hit at like just the right time, which I think is why I liked watching it so much.
Yeah.
It was your babysitter. You guys would get it when the parents would go out for the night.
Literally. Yeah. Yeah, that was always the routine.
Yeah,
Totally.
Sarah and I are basically the same age and had the same experience where I don't know how, it's not necessarily like something you would think of as like a guy sleepover movie, but it totally was in our sleepover rotation.
Yeah.
UHF was certainly the number one, but this was probably in the top 3. Just like always legendary. I will watch it at the drop of a hat too.
It's horny AF, so that doesn't surprise me. Like,
Exactly.
you wouldn't know it, because it seems like it's gonna be like, oh, Gremlins. I mean, there's even like a little gizmo backpack at one point. But
yeah, that's right.
Yes,
that's right.
I noticed that for the first time.
Yeah, speaking of that, we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, you're gonna say something.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's really weird that this movie is strangely more uncomfortable than Gremlins, and Gremlins, like, we're being chopped up in wood chippers, and I'm like, can we go back to the fun movie with the killer creatures? Like, Anyway,
I was surprised at how much this movie alarmed me as I was watching it as an adult with an 18-year-old kid. I was like, whoa! You know, so it's like it's just different context, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a good segue into some initial facts about the movie. Jump us into our discussion. So, Adventures in Babysitting was also known as A Night on the Town in certain countries. It was written by David Simpkins and directed by Chris Columbus in his directorial debut. This is, we didn't even plan this, but our second Chris Columbus related movie in a row, because he wrote Gremlins, didn't direct it. This is his first directorial, and of course he went on to do Home Alone, the Harry Potter movies became a much bigger deal. But this was his first directing role. It features cameos, we'll talk about as we get to that, by blues singer guitarist Albert Collins in an amazing role. The writer David Simpkins was working for New World Pictures when he read a copy of the script for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and said he wanted to do a teen film of that vein. And mixed in with After Hours, in which he told a series of misadventures over a limited time period. They said Paramount, when the project was at Paramount, they wanted Molly Ringwald to be the lead. And then they also proposed Cher and Bette Midler as possible stars. Cher would have been really something else. And then they knew when they saw Elizabeth Shue that that's who they wanted for the role, but they still saw a lot of alternatives before finally offering it to her. Rick Waite, who I think was the cinematographer, confirmed that they shot the film using techniques much more similar to a drama than a comedy, which kind of is highlighted in the film's unpredictable tone. It was the first Disney movie to have a PG-13 rating, which is interesting, distributed by Walt Disney. They were only, and I was mentioning this to Sarah, they talk about the city a lot, and it's clearly obviously Chicago. They never really mentioned the word Chicago, and they also only shot in Chicago for 2 weeks. Everything else was in Toronto, where they filmed it, which is interesting. And they said it was too clean there, so they had to put trash on the streets that then was better to make it simulate Chicago, which is pretty funny. But the blues bar scene, it says, was in Chicago. The Playboy, which we'll talk about, those were actually pictures of Elizabeth Shue, not fully nude, but they were taken, and she went to the Playboy Mansion to take them, which is pretty interesting. So, and then finally, multiple production sources and trivia sources note that Bradley Whitford used his own Camaro for this, and the license plate So Cool was his actual license plate at the time.
No, that's amazing.
Pretty incredible.
That is amazing.
Speaking of the PG version, which we just talked about, the PG version is what streams currently on Disney Plus. Where it gives you a notice that things have been edited, including, unfortunately, two of the best lines in the movie: "Don't fuck with the Lords of Hell" and "Don't fuck with the babysitter." Became "Don't fool with the Lords of Hell" and "Don't fool with the babysitter." Unfortunate. And then Elizabeth Shue said the iconic Babysitting Blues song that was written by pop songwriter Mark Mueller and Robert Kraft was one of her favorite experiences of all time. Filming.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So let's jump in and talk about how we feel about this. So, plot summary to start. After her boyfriend, Mike Todwell, cancels their anniversary date, 17-year-old Chris Parker invites her friend Brenda over to her Oak Park, Illinois house to cheer her up. But she's convinced by her mother to babysit their neighbor's daughter, 8-year-old Sarah Anderson, while the parents attend a party in downtown Chicago. Later that evening, Chris receives a frantic call from Brenda, who ran away to a downtown bus station. Chris plans to pick her up, but is coerced by Sarah's 15-year-old brother, Brad, and Brad's best friend, Daryl Coopersmith, to take them with her. So I'll stop there. Maybe Sarah, what's your initial take for the intro part of this?
I mean, I know this movie so well that, and I've seen it a zillion times, but I think this time I was really struck with just how good Elizabeth Shue is. I feel like right from the beginning, she has a lot of charisma, but she also has a reality to her. I feel like her performance reminds me a lot. I was telling Kyle while we were watching this, of Buffy, Sarah Michelle Gellar's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is the material is so silly, but Sarah Michelle Gellar really grounds in her performance. You really feel her teenage emotions, because, and she's doing this ridiculous material, but she's really grounding it in reality so well that you're kind of there with her on her journey. So I really felt that. I feel like I love Elizabeth Shue's performance in this. So I love that. And then I also loved her relationship with Brenda. Kind of right from the beginning, I was struck with how honest they are with each other in a way that I don't always see anymore. I love how Brenda's just he's lying.
Right. And she says,
instantly.
the best thing that ever happened to me. And Brenda's like,
Like,
he's the
"It's the
only
only
thing
thing."
that's ever happened to you. You know, it felt like a real friendship.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think that's one of the strengths of this movie is that I feel like the cast all have really good chemistry.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the things that I really like in a movie is when characters are playing off each other and you can tell they're having a good time.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'll say more about that later. But
Cool.
yeah.
All right, Jeremy, bring us down. I'm just kidding.
No, I think Sarah's point about the lead actress is a really good one, because like if she reacted over the top and was like, whoa, ah, woo, you know, it would have been too cartoony and it would have been cloying. So the sort of exasperated character who is somehow always keeping their cool but is always on the verge of snapping.
Mhm.
I think that's a really fun like narrator. Really like the intro of the movie. The soundtrack of this movie has been in my head for the last couple of days, been played on Spotify, but the Then He Kissed Me song is super catchy. And I feel like just right away, and it gets better over the film, but right away I just hate these children, because she tells them my friend's in danger and they're just bored and want to come along, and they don't give a F about Brenda's safety. But then I come to realize, like, oh, that's just the tone of the movie. Like everyone's kind of blasé about each people being in danger, and I don't know if that's just city life, but I guess they're in the suburbs, so that doesn't really make sense yet. I don't know. I also just love the little girl's obsession with Thor. Like very, very prescient, you know. It's like, oh, who would have guessed that Thor? Because it's almost like a joke. Like he wasn't a popular comic character,
Exactly.
No.
Right.
right? And
I
so
did
then
not know who Thor was. Like this was my first introduction to Thor.
That's one of my notes too. Is I think this may be the first time I encountered Thor as a kid was this movie for sure.
right. And so, like, you know, I just imagine it, the people making that movie. It's like, you know that in like 30 years, he's going to be the hottest man alive. And it's like, what? But we'll get to Vincent D'Onofrio later.
Yeah, totally. How about Lisa? What's your take on the intro?
Yeah. So it was very interesting how, when I watched this, how my perception of the movie has changed so much since, you know, I'm now middle aged, and I, like I said, I loved this movie when I was growing up. We could talk about it later on, but I wanted to be a blues singer, you know, and I was like, you know, but first of all, the cast. I was looking at this cast and going, Anthony Rapp, Penelope Ann Miller, Vincent D'Onofrio, and of course, Oscar nominee Elizabeth Shue, who looks glowing and beautiful in this movie. Like, she had that hair, and I never could really understand her hair because my hair has been like this my entire life. And this is bouncy, beautiful. I know it's done, but still, you know, I was just like, God, she's so gorgeous. But I actually hung out with Keith Coogan in the early 90s in Los Angeles. His apartment in LA. I did not know him. I did not hang out more than once with him. We were at a party and they were smoking a lot of weed. So, so I think it was probably like 89, maybe 90. Something like that.
Did he do much after that? I really didn't follow the Keith Coogan.
He did Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, where he played a pothead.
That's right.
And I think, I'm sorry, I was wrong. It was probably 93, 94. I'm rewinding. Like, that was right after I graduated. And my friend who I moved out there with just like found him and hooked up with him and was like, hey, we're going over to Keith's house. And I was like, oh, okay. There was no furniture anywhere. There's no lights. And they were all just doing pot. I didn't do weed at that time. So I was just like, okay, this is kind of cool. You know, but there's my 6 degrees of separation.
Wow. That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
1 degree. It's not 6.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
So I felt in the first part that Mike had douche written all over him from the minute he got out of that car. And I was just like, what is this girl doing with him? He seems to be very old, first of all. And then, I mean, I know that actor, that guy plays like jerks all the time, but then like when we got to the part where she ran away to the bus station, right? I was like, why does everybody seem too old for these scenarios? I wasn't quite sure why. And then also I was thinking about, oh God, if this set was set in this day and age, none of these situations would happen at all. You call Uber, or you like,
cell phone solves the whole thing. Yeah, 100%.
You know, exactly. And then I was like, oh my God, this guy's showing Brenda a gun. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So I was a little bit freaked out that first section of the movie. But then I was like, okay, we're going to get into it. It's going to be good.
Yeah. Nice. My take to the intro, I love the song, but there's like two parts that I've always said like repeatedly that are like my two favorite parts of movies. One is in movies. One is the Back to the Future when he's strumming the guitar again. And he does the final chord, and everyone pops back into the picture when it's playing Earth Angel. That's like maybe my favorite moment in movies. This one is probably my favorite intro in any movie, just in terms of the pure joy it brings me. That she's like fully going for it. That song, it's just like I love everything about the intro to this movie for sure. And then also that it comes back as like at the end when she actually does kiss him again, the song comes back again. But yeah, and then I had my other note. This is probably the first time I encountered Thor in a movie, which is crazy, as he was much more lesser known. Also, the same age theory, not the age note. Like, not only is Bradley Whitford like obviously way too old for, like, he's got to be like late 20s at the earliest in this, and she's 17, but the parents are like 60. Right, I mean, like the parents that leave for like they're like incredibly old to have kids. Like that's crazy to me. But yeah, maybe I don't know if that was just intentional or just we never noticed at the time. But like they look wildly old. And then Sarah, I don't know if she's back on. I know she's a visitor just came over.
I'm back.
You're back audio. I don't see your video yet, but your audio.
Oh, my video's on.
Oh, okay. Maybe I don't know. Turn it on and off again. We'll see. But yeah, she has a theory on Bradley Whitford in that he is getting hotter as he ages, and I've always sort of understood that, but I hadn't really watched young Bradley Whitford in a while. And yeah, he's like repulsive when he's young. He's like very dignified now. So anyway, there we go.
Am I back now?
You're back.
Okay.
Cool.
Can I say something real quick? Because it just something Jeremy said made me think of it about the kids just being like bored, and like I think that was kind of the point, because it's like their suburban life is supposed to be so boring. So I do think that's kind of like deliberate. Like even with Brenda saying like he's the only thing that ever happened to you, and then at the end they all say like it's the greatest night of their life. It's like the only thing that's ever happened to them.
It's fine. Yeah, totally.
So I do think that part was intentional.
Yeah. All right. Next scene, or few scenes. On the freeway, their station wagon suffers a flat tire, and they're picked up by a tow truck driver, handsome John Pruitt, who offers to pay for the tire when Chris realizes she left her purse at the Andersons. En route, Pruitt receives a call from his boss, Dawson, with evidence that his wife is cheating on him. He rushes to the house to confront the infidelity. The car of Chris's mother is damaged when he accidentally shoots out the windshield while trying to kill his wife's lover. Chris and the kids hide in the adulterer's Cadillac, which car thief Joe Gipp then steals. Reaching their hideout in the south side, the kids realize they've stumbled upon a multi-state car theft operation. They're detained.
Uh-oh.
Did he freeze? He froze for you guys, right?
Kyle, you froze.
It's the events of their evening while the band plays, causing the audience to sing along and applaud.
Oh no, he froze again.
I froze again.
This is weird, but we can tell he's like in the middle of the movie now.
Sorry, what did you say?
You froze twice or three times.
Oh no. Okay, well, wonderful. Hopefully you guys am I back? Am I back at all? No.
You're all out
You're
of
very pixelated.
You're back. You're pixelated.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I can give my thoughts while you're doing that.
Give your thoughts.
Go ahead and do that.
This is the point, Sarah, where the movie starts to test my ability to enjoy it, because the first black character you meet is the carjacker. The second black character you meet is the king of the carjackers, and the third black character is a random woman in the bus stop who steals from Brenda. And it's just like, is this like, and then I think the movie kind of addresses it later in the blues scene, but it definitely felt like some stereotyping that has not aged well and was kind of shocking to see in a kid's movie. I don't know, maybe that's why you guys liked it.
Every movie was like that when we were growing up. Like and I think a lot of it comes from this post-70s fear of urbanization, which Black people were sort of lumped in with that as being like part of the urban landscape. I do think the movie because I thought about that too. I was like, is this really kind of racist? And then I was like, but I feel like Joe Gipp is like the hero, like one of the big heroes. So it's like, I do feel like it is trying to not be that way, but I think it is like, there's definitely just a fear of anyone who lives in the city that they're a criminal, that they're going to rob you, that I think really comes from like the 1970s New York City. You're going to get robbed on the subway. Because I feel like that's something that we've talked about before in different movies, about how that image is so fully a part of movies of the 80s that like I just accepted that like unquestioningly as a kid, that like, oh, you go to the city and like, you know, it's scary and people are going to try to rob, which is just so ridiculous, you know. But it's like that point of view was presented to me so many times in stories, you know, that yeah, so it doesn't shock me, but it is something that I notice every time I watch a movie from this era, that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so funny how they're all like locking their doors because like they're in the city and they see a black person, you know.
Yeah.
So what's your take then, Sarah, on the blues bar scene? Because it really struck me as like, because the heroes, the main characters are all terrified, and they're one of them.
I wanted to talk about this too.
Yeah. So Lisa, I'd love to get your thoughts, because like Dylan says, like, or you know, or no, Daryl. Daryl is like, you know, just get us out of here. Like they're still in imminent danger just because it's a room full of black people. But then like that ends up being the only community to treat them as if their lives have value and like they're kind to them and stuff. But so is that confronting the stereotype, or is that using the stereotype for your narrative? I don't know. Lisa, what do you think?
So of course this was pretty much my favorite scene in the whole movie when I was growing up. And so when I did have a band, I would sing classic soul, R&B and blues, Aretha Franklin and stuff like that. And so, but you look at this, and this is the Blues Club is a very, it's not an original thing, because I don't know, when was Weird Science? And I mistook this for a John Hughes movie when I first started watching it. I think Weird Science was maybe around the same time.
I think it was like a couple years before, or 1 year, but close.
So they did that, not with singing, but with these two teenage white boys showing up with Lisa, and they all go, you know, and they're like, turn around, I'll shove it up your ass, you know, stuff like that. So, but then it turns around and they're all like, you guys are okay. We've had a couple drinks. It's all good, you know, and stuff like that. So that same thing happens here. And you're like, are they going to die? And I was like, but I loved this scene. Wait a moment. Let me watch it, you know? But, you know, Albert Collins is like, nobody gets out of here without singing the blues. And I was like, okay, you know. She like gets into it, and they have a good time. They walk them out, and then they don't let the other guys out because they're like, nobody gets out here without singing the blues. And I was like, it's fun, but it is definitely this white suburban young coming up next to the black urban and adult, very adult, middle-aged crowd, you know. And it's just like, what is this? But the black people are like, well, just show us you can hang with us,
right?
And we're good. You know, so
well, and I think it's a classic fish out of water thing, right? It's like, it's probably the first time these white characters have ever been in a room where they're not the majority. And I think it's kind of like, and it's like, they're fine, but it's like, I actually think it's kind of like, it shows how sheltered they are, right? It shows like their assumptions, like, oh, are they going to hurt us? Because, which is like ridiculous, but like, I think it's just the sheer intimidation, not even necessarily that they're like, oh, they're so racist. They think that just because they're black, it's just, they've probably never been in a room with that many black people. Right. And so they're just like, oh my gosh. Right. And I don't know. I just feel like that, like having grown up in a town of like mostly white people, like
me too.
In a small town, it's like that, you know, I think that experience, like maybe with my childhood, kind of like resonates. Like, oh, like, and now, like as an adult, of course, I'm like, wow, that's how minorities feel like when they enter all white spaces, right? Which are like a lot of spaces.
Exactly.
So I think it's kind of a nice way to reflect on that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna give the movie too much credit, or maybe exactly enough credit, Sarah. But like I'm you guys talking about that's making me think about the line. Nobody gets out of here without singing the blues, and it's like it's more of like no one leaves until we understand each other kind of
Share the
thing,
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
right? And so like maybe this movie is super unracist.
Maybe. Well, one
But
thing I did want to point out was that in the car chop shop, the big guy,
The bad guy's white.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
yeah, and so there was a lot of white guys in there, so it wasn't just. That's the thing that I was like, well, the whole chop shop wasn't black people, so that's
Yeah.
good,
Okay, but
like,
but then you have the Streets of Rage subway scene where the two
Yeah.
rival gangs. And
Warriors.
like, but even
Yeah.
then, though, there was like the token white guy, which is this weird like that's a weird sentence.
I thought the gangs were a little more brown too, like not like
yeah,
like a little more Hispanic flavor. So at least it was
they
equal
looked
opportunity
snazzy, though,
racism.
did they not? They looked real snazzy and put together. It was like,
Oh, yeah.
you wear this red vest, you wear this black vest, hang,
okay,
It
but
was very Hollywood gang.
did anyone else grow up playing the Streets of Rage video games where you were
Yeah, of
like in the like final fight, and I was like, oh, I want a movie about that. That'd be so fun.
For sure.
So I actually thought that scene was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I want Kyle's opinion, no particular reason, on the ongoing motif of Playboy throughout this movie, Kyle. Because that got uncomfortable at points, but also my favorite Playboy moment was when they are escaping the chop shop and he stole the Playboy from the criminal, right, Lisa? And it's the centerfold out. So like it accordions towards danger.
Yeah.
And and the villains have a better chance of seeing it because that's like hanging low. And like I love that whole sequence. It felt
Yeah.
very like Indiana Jones, and like you're
Yeah.
above a snake pit, but and like when they nudge the dirt off the girder and it falls into the guy's coffee, but then he doesn't notice, and Joe notices him escaping, but he doesn't say anything, and you're like, oh, this is a really redeemable, really like he's not the villain those guys are.
Right.
He's just wrapped up in what they're doing. So
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you cracked the case though. I like the whole they got to speak the same language. But also like they're the ones then that use the power. Tell Jackie I said the power of community, but the power of the community in that room to basically mask the fact that they can sneak out of the room because now they're one of them. That's
Well,
pretty
and then they stop the underboss and says no one leaves until they sing the blues.
right. So
Right.
once they're like part of their group, they're gonna defend their group. Yeah.
Can I talk about a scene I really like in this section of the movie too, which I just relate to all the time. I quote it all the time. Kyle knows I say this constantly, which is the I am still in control here. For your car. Daryl, buckle the safety belt. I am not losing anything. I am still in control here. I feel like I can relate to it. Like I related to it as a mom. I relate to it as a teacher. Like I relate to it as a human being trying to hold it together in January 25th, 2026 and everything that's going on. Like I am trying to hold it together here. I am still in control here. I love that scene so much, and I love the reactions to her. And again, to just go back to the ensemble, I feel like what makes this movie, honestly, is the performances, because there's really not much in the plot that's really exceptional, right? It's just you're taking these normal suburban kids and you're putting them in an extreme situation. Their personalities and their conflicts are all kind of set up from the beginning, and then you watch them go through crazy wild things, right? And I always like movies with that setup, especially if the ensemble's good. I was thinking about how it reminds me of The Dream Team. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
Yes.
Another movie I love with Christopher Lloyd and Michael Keaton and their escaped mental patients. And it's the same type of thing where they set up their personalities from the beginning. They kind of show you like, here's who these guys are. Here's what they're dealing with. They get lost in New York, lose their doctor, have to fight. So it's like very, very similar setup, right? Like it's like, we are not competent adults. We're lost and loose in the city, and we have to kind of like solve our problems, or you just kind of watch the characters react to different situations. And I think that's my favorite type of comedy because I love character-driven comedy. And I love watching characters get on each other's nerves and have to try to get along. And especially, again, when the ensemble is good. And I feel like another performance that really grounds the movie is Brad. I love Brad. I love when they cut to Brad's face, and he just gets emasculated over and over again throughout the movie. You know, Chris says cutting things, not even meaning to. She's just a girl who's looking for a little bit older, more mature man than him. She's not trying to be mean. She's not a mean girl, but she just says things that cut him so deep. And you just, like, you see on his face, like, the pain, but like, what a good kid he really is, and that he really wants to impress her. And I feel like his performance in a lot of ways is like the heart of the movie, because it's like, it's about him growing up too, and realizing, like, you don't have to get the girl to, like, be a good person. Do you know what I mean? Like, and at the end, he kind of is letting her go. And I think he knows,
he has
like,
that moment at the window.
Yeah.
At the end. Sweet.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually really touching, because I feel like even though it doesn't really say, like, oh, Brad learned his lesson, right? It's like, I feel like he did grow up, right? And realize, like, you're a good person to be a good person. You don't do it to get the girl, right? You do it because that's who you're supposed to be. And I don't know. I just really like his performance. So
Yeah.
I think it really captures the feeling of being a young man who's pining for someone that doesn't look at you the way you look at them, you know? And I also, like, jumping ahead, like Lisa mentioned, though, like, I do really love his moment at the window, because it's like a hard thing to do, but also I think that's what makes Elizabeth Shue's character likable, is that she never, like, flirts back or gives him hope, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, even I was just like, don't end up together. That's weird. And so I don't know if I love the nature of the other romantic interest, because it seems very standard to the movie. But I also think, like,
I think it was more to show Brad letting her go. Like, I don't even think it was about her and him, you know?
No. Yeah, that's a good point. It's funny. So I'm recording a podcast later tonight about the new Silent Hill movie, Return to Silent Hill, which we saw last night. And it is very much like this plot of, like, one thing leads to another, but that one, it's not written as well. So it really feels like a character just wandering or running from one place to the next. And I think the narrative structure of this movie is really fun and clever, in that there's always a logical reason for characters to meet and then be transported to a different place. And then they're intertwining. And at one point, like, the guy that Handsome John Pruitt was trying to kill sees them in the hospital, like, hey, you, and it's like, you get this kind of fun sense that all of these background characters are having lives outside of the movie.
Right.
And so I think that doesn't get enough credit for it.
Yeah. All right. Next part. After separating Daryl from a prostitute who's a runaway, Chris is reminded of Brenda. They are found and chased again by Graydon and Bleak, the head guy, but escape on the Chicago L train and wind up in the middle of a gang fight. Brad is injured when one of the gang leaders throws a switchblade into his foot. They take Brad to the University Hospital, where, to his embarrassment and disappointment, he receives a single stitch. They run into Pruitt, who's now on the run from his earlier attacks. He says he replaced the windshield, but Dawson wants $50 for the tire. The kids come across a frat house party. While there, a gentleman named Dan Lynch learns of Chris's problem and manages to donate $45. He takes them to Dawson's garage and drops them off. So we'll stop right before Dawson's garage. What was your take on that whole subway hospital scene? How about Lisa?
Well, I was kind of rolling with it at this time, because it did seem quite a lot like After Hours. But that one is way more bizarre than this. These didn't seem like such bizarre things, but they are a little random. But you're right. It very much was logical. Well, they got in the car, they have a carjacker. They got in the thing and it did seem to segue very, very well. And they're like, okay, there's a hospital, go to the hospital. And we're like, oh, great, at least they'll be someplace safe for a while. Well, maybe, but, and then we get to the point where we're going to go to Dawson's garage, right? I think that's what we're going to do. So
we'll do that.
I was just going with it. I was waiting for the Dawson's garage moment.
Nice. Jeremy, what was your take on this? Shenanigans.
So there's this, like, very I'm obsessed with this side character of the emergency room surgeon who just doesn't give a
Oh.
shit. And he's super sleepy and he's like, one stitch. And like there's like another stabbing victim in the hospital, but he confuses it for Daryl. So she comes out and tells Elizabeth, I'm sorry, your friend is there. And it's like this weird mix between like a racial, well, it's not a racial stereotype. It feels like a fake accent, but yeah. And I was just like, is this movie just really anti-minority or whatever? So that was another thing. But then also I'm like, I kind of love this character and I want a whole movie of the emergency room surgeon who's not good, but it's this gritty area where it's like you take what you can get, you know, and that's like a known thing. I'm sure you guys are aware, or I don't know if you're aware, that America has an immigration policy that will encourage immigration for high need jobs like surgeons and doctors, but only if they agree to live in rough areas. And so it can be like in urban areas, or it can be like in like
small towns. Like my doctor was Indian. Growing up, he was the only Indian guy in town. Was Dr. Delfinato.
Do you know if he emigrated to America?
Yeah. I mean, he was an immigrant. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure. I mean, I didn't talk to him extensively about it because he was like my childhood doctor, but I always assumed he probably came out there, or I assumed later when I learned about programs that would try to get, you know, these doctors from other countries into small towns where there weren't that many medical professionals. I was like, oh, that's probably why Dr. Dell was randomly in Rochelle. Because why would you go someplace where you have no community, right? Nobody speaks your language. Yeah. Unless you had some other incentive.
It's interesting that if we can just touch on the fact that the Disney Plus PG version is going to kind of become the version in people's minds, because of how, you know, it's easy to access. And so many people subscribe to that service. But like, you know, there's other things on Disney Plus that have PG-13 ratings and F-bombs and things like that.
What
so like
is on Disney Plus? Come on.
Right. So it's interesting that, and you can on Disney Plus, you can say like, I don't want to see that kind of content. But it's just weird that instead of shunting this into that content where it really belongs, they give us the TV cut with dubbing over the bad words.
Do you think it's because of the Thor thing, Kyle?
Well, that was our initial thought. I thought they were going to cut a lot of the Thor stuff just because they were disparaging Thor at the time. So I was like,
that line? But we don't know because we didn't watch we watched the original cut. Did it say Thor's a homo?
That's what they say. Thor's a homo. They changed it to weirdo.
They changed it.
Weirdo. Okay, so I mean, maybe Disney just doesn't want Thor as a homo to be like,
that's what I'm almost wondering.
He is a weirdo.
Honestly, what else would it be? Like you said, they have F-bombs and other things, but they also own Marvel right now, right?
Yeah.
Or they're the same company or whatever.
I wouldn't rule it out for sure.
But like, you don't think they would know that would go viral and like end up being good and to be like adopted by the gay community and like it'd be this whole like empowering catchphrase, you know? Okay, but so Kyle, you're going to talk to us about the Thor scene.
Yeah. Okay. So my only notes on this part too were that guy Dan or whatever, the other love interest, immediately was like poor man's Paul Rudd 100 times. Like
I know. I was like, is that Paul? I'm like, no, too young.
No, it's like diet Paul Rudd. And then mostly my other references are the fact that Sarah will quote one stitch more than you would expect her to quote.
One stitch.
And also like her and her family will also quote, "Here comes Devereaux" when they're going when the subway stops. I don't know why.
Trains rolling through our town. No, because when we see the subway stations, we'll go, "Here goes Jackson. There goes Jackson. Here comes Devereaux."
Okay, now we're almost at the end here. So they find Dawson. His blonde hair and sledgehammer leads Sarah to believe that he is Thor. He denies them the car because of the $5 shortage, but when Sarah offers him her toy Thor helmet, he has a change of heart and lets them go. Meanwhile, Joe Gipp has told Bleak, this is the head guy, about their troubles. The three of them are waiting to follow them. The kids find the restaurant where Mike was supposed to take Chris and discover he's there with a girl called Sesame Plexer. Sarah slips away to look at a toy store while Chris confronts Mike, which leaves Chris visibly hurt after downplaying their relationship. Brad stands up for Chris, but is reluctant to hit Mike, so Daryl kicks Mike into a table, ruining his dinner and causing a commotion. Bleak spots Sarah, and Graydon chases her to an office building where she hides. The others note her disappearance and follow, accidentally coming across the Andersons' party. After Sarah climbs out an open window and slides down the building, Chris spots her and they run upstairs to help. So I will just start myself for this one just because Sarah laughed at Sesame Flexer for like a solid 2 minutes. Just the name Sesame Flexer.
I totally forgot that was her name. And I was like, Sesame Flexer.
That's the weirdest stripper name I've ever heard.
It's pretty great.
Flexer.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll come back to me, but what was your take, Jeremy, on this part?
Okay, so 2 things. One, you want to hear my $1 billion idea?
Yeah, do it.
All right, Disney,
Yeah.
listen, Disney. In the new Avengers movie coming out, right? Take the actress who played Sarah, put them in that movie, and give her a line of like, "Oh yeah, I met him in a parking garage once." All of a sudden, because all of a sudden, this is a Marvel movie, and everyone will be watching it again.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
in the MCU, you know, he really was him. But
That's good.
right? That's like legit a good idea, Lisa.
No, that actually is.
Do it,
Yeah.
She still looks like that. She's got those cute little eyes and everything, that curly hair. That totally looks like her.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this is the scene where Daryl for a second was redeemable because Brad is like, I'm not going to stoop to your level. I'm not going to punch you. And then Daryl's like, I'll stoop to your level and kicks him. And it was like kind of like, to use like the Dungeons and Dragons metaphor. Like, it was good to have like a barbarian in the party. Like, yeah, he's not the most couth, but Daryl will like literally kick a man in the ass for you. And that's kind of rad. But in the very next scene, then he's checking out unconscious Brenda's body under her coat.
Right.
And it's just like,
Look, I'm a Daryl apologist, okay? Like, I know he's a horn dog, but he's not afraid to admit when he got his ass kicked. Like, how many?
that's so
like,
funny.
When you think of all the toxic male, like, yes, he's horny. He's super horny, like 15-year-old boy or whatever. Okay. But like, he just admits, he's like, yeah, that guy kicked my ass. Like, you know, I kind of loved that. And then when he thinks Brad is dead, remember, he like hugs him and he's like, don't ever die on me. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And he's got male friendships. Like, I don't know. I feel like Daryl has some really redeeming qualities. He's obviously obsessed with sex because like that's his age. And obviously like there's some questionable ways he, you know, like expresses it. But I have a lot of love for Daryl. By the way, I think we skipped this, but it was actually Huey Lewis, I believe, is in that party scene.
Oh, was that
I'm pretty
actually?
sure.
oh, is he the other singer?
I'm pretty sure that's actually Huey Lewis. I don't know how I knew that, but I think
Where was that?
in the party scene, the band at the party, I'm pretty sure is Huey Lewis.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. Now I know what you're talking about. Okay, good. Yeah, I was like, which?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that band.
I just didn't want to let that go without saying.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
Uh,
I love Huey Lewis.
Yeah, Lisa, what's your take on this part?
Well, okay, so, Dalton's garage. I was like, here comes beautiful. Like, probably, how old is he in this movie? It's
Gotta
crazy.
be like
But you know
20s.
what? Full Metal Jacket came out the same year.
Right,
as this movie,
right,
and I'm pretty
yeah.
sure he did not look anything like that. He's thin, he's got these muscles, and then a blonde curly wig on him, but he looks good. And I was like, holy crap, Vincent D'Onofrio, that was nuts. So I love that moment, and I love that he like doesn't admit that he's sore, but he's like, I have my own hat at home, you know. So I'm like, okay, good.
Yeah.
But okay, so then we were talking about what's the what I want to talk about? I can't remember. So you had we're not to the skyscraper yet, are we? Where are we?
Yeah, she just ran out the open window. We haven't gotten to the full.
Right. Okay, cool. Oh, God. All right. Don't worry about it. It's not obviously that important if I forgot what I was going to say. But the whole climbing out the window thing, because the bad guys are there, to me was nuts. So the guy follows her out. I'm like, what are you going to do when you get up with her? Are you going to pick her up and throw her over your shoulder? I'm like, oh, it's just like, this is nuts. This is so weird. So I was glad that ended the way it did. I'm sure he got down just fine, or up again just fine. But I was just like, this little girl has like no fear. I mean, she was a little bit scared, but at the same time, she was like, let's go up in the warehouse. She's like, up there, we're going to go up there and we're going to escape. And I was like, what the hell? And then she's like, I'm going to climb out on this huge skyscraper in Chicago. And I was just like,
yeah,
mm,
it's wild.
mm.
I wrote a note other than Sesame Plexer, which is also great. My other note on the Marvel tip was the fact that he's quote unquote Thor here, and then he becomes Kingpin later in the Marvel universe.
Oh, that's
right.
It's quite a transition. And then also, like, I think I have to look. I think Die Hard was like 88, 89 or something. But like those open, unfinished top floors vibe give me strong Die Hard. So like, did Die Hard steal from Adventures in Babysitting? Is the question I'm asking.
I feel like a big thing in like 80s and early 90s movies was like a dangling scene. I feel like there would always be a scene, like I'm thinking of like Rush Hour when they're like dangling from the thing. Like that used to be a really reliable climax, and I was kind of nostalgic for it, and I was like, oh, a good dangling scene. It's been a while. The last one was Missing Link. I don't know if you guys saw that claymation one, but it has a great dangling scene. This is a weird thing to really appreciate, but it's like it's a dangling scene, but it has the same visceral impact even though it's an animation because they're physical models, so you still get the physicality of the dangle. I love a good dangle.
The dangle.
All right,
simple man, give me a good dangle scene. I'm happy.
You're happy. All right, let's wrap it up. Last part here. After the group pulls Sarah from outside the window, Bleak, the head guy, intervenes. Joe knocks him unconscious before giving him the Playboy magazine that Daryl had stolen, which contained important notes the criminals wanted. The kids retrieve. I'm just reading dangled. The kids retrieve Brenda from the bus station and rush home, avoiding the Andersons on the interstate. Once home, Chris cleans up the mess left earlier, settles into place just as the Andersons enter. As she's leaving, Dan arrives with one of Sarah's missing skates. With her encouragement, Chris and Dan reconcile and kiss. The end. Lisa, what was your take on the ending?
Well, okay, so I remember what I was going to talk about on the last part, and that was the frat party, right? So I had terrible times at frat parties in college, and Elizabeth Shue was fucking gorgeous, but I really appreciated that this one guy seemed very genuinely, like, obviously he was enamored with her, but he really wanted to help her out. But the other thing, when he took them to Dawson's garage, was that they kept on doing the stupidest little, oh no, I know. I'm like, ask her for a freaking number, you weirdo. And then I was like, you missed that point. He, the whole money thing. I was like, oh my God, this is just like too much for me. I'm like, obviously they want to see each other again. And what saves the day but a skate, right? I was like, oh, she missed her skate. And I'd forgotten that I was like, how did he find her address? I was like, what the heck? And the skate, so that was actually really well done, I thought. So connecting them again, and I liked that they got together. It wasn't like the whole bit of the story, and then also having Brad's the brother, right? Yeah, Brad just had that really whimsical, sweet, sad kind of, okay, I'm okay with that. She's with the guy, that's okay, Yeah. So I really liked that ending, because that was more the ending than them kissing to me.
Right. Right. Yeah. I agree too, just because I didn't have many notes too. I also really like the sweet / sadness of the twisting of the blinds to close it. Like, I'm closing this chapter. We have learned a lot, but I'm making the right choice, and it's kind of a quiet choice. I like that a lot. Exactly. And of course, the reprising of the intro song again at the end. I liked it.
But probably the second best needle drop, though, I don't know why, but there's this scene that I know it's going to live rent free in my head, is on the way to the garage. They play "Gimme Shelter" by the and it's this really cool, like, lit, like, it's like the tunnel they're in is lit by green light, and like it just really, I don't know if like you guys can relate to this, but like when you're a little kid and your parents are driving you through the big city, and everything was dark, and, you know what I mean? And it really captured that mood, and I love that the movie just sits on that for like a good 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, that's like a haunting song, and the visuals are kind of haunting.
Yeah, like there's a lot of good needle drops in this movie.
I do agree. There's one thing I did want to add for the end.
Yeah.
I kind of felt bad for Brenda when she pushed her out of the house. I kind of felt her whole situation was taken pretty lightly all the way
they're like, you're done, you're back. Yeah.
So, she ran away from freaking home, for Christ's sake, and I'm like, what, is she abused or something like that? But the whole thing is a little light. She's like, I don't want to go home. She's like, sorry, you have to go home. And then I was like, okay. That was the only thing I felt a little bad about.
I think that there's that comedy concept of like the one person in the group that no one gives a shit about. It's like the Kenny in South Park, you know what I mean? And like, and that's the real irony, is that Brenda, like, no one knows how brave and resilient Brenda is. because she's just alone in her hell as she's just constantly being pestered by the guy with the gun and just like the homeless people, and like, you know, she just can't catch a break. So I will
say my brother and I, like, our most quoted scenes are Brenda's adventures. So like the hot dog guy exchange.
Yep.
And the jumbo-sized sewer rat, and get out of my house. Like, I feel like we would always play out those scenes together, like in funny, different ways.
Yeah, I was like, this get out of my house. I was like, that's not funny. Like, that's not cool. And then when the other homeless person goes up and just get out of my house, like, oh, they got this. Like, like, well done. You like, that was like that punchline has like a 30-minute gap to the payoff. And it's like,
right.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good movie.
Anything else you guys want to cover on this last part, Sarah, Jeremy?
Oh, I think I'm good.
You're good. Nice. Okay, cool. So let's go to best and worst here. What is your favorite part of the movie, and what is your least favorite part of the movie? How about start with Lisa?
Well, definitely Nobody Gets Out of Here Without Singing the Blues.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually didn't know that somebody actually wrote that song. I was like, oh, they just figured out some dialogue and put it to da 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 da, you know, because that's the classic blues line, right? So I was like, oh, that's really cool. They just, obviously that's my favorite part. Like, you know, that's my dream part. The worst part, to tell you the truth, I felt like the worst part of it was when they got the flat tire. And what's the friend's name? Doug? Is his name Doug? I can't remember.
Daryl.
Daryl. Okay. When he was like laughing hysterically like a hyena, I'm like, what's wrong with this kid? I was just like, what the heck is going on? But that was one of my worst points. But I also think that the other worst point is her shoving Brenda out of the house after she ran away. But there's no real worst parts in this movie, I don't think.
How about Sarah? What's your take?
Well, I love this whole movie, of course, but I think one thing really stuck out to me on rewatching it as an adult, which is I really just loved how Chris is like, she thinks she's so much more mature than like Brad, but there are these moments where Brad's telling her what's going on or like what to do that I find really interesting. And I think it's just to show us, again, Brad is like maturing into like a good person, right? But it's like, he's the one who's like, pull over, Chris. Just pull over. Like, he's the one keeping her really calm. And that scene that you were talking about where Daryl's just like laughing hysterically and everyone else is screaming. And he's like, no, pull over here. And then like, he has to tell her like, he's a car thief. This is a stolen car.
Right.
Like, and I feel like there are a couple other moments where I was like, oh, Brad. It's just very interesting because Brad knows what's going on. Like, he's mature enough and self-aware enough, but he still knows Chris is never going to give him the time of day. And I thought their whole dynamic, like, when I watched as a kid, I just thought, oh, he's so pathetic. Doesn't he have any dignity? Like, why doesn't he stop throwing himself at her? He's just embarrassing himself. That was my take as a kid, you know? And seeing it as an adult, I'm like, oh, he's so sweet. Yeah. Like, he's, you know, and I just love their interactions. And again, like Jeremy said, I love that Chris isn't mean to him. She's not leading him on. I think they have a really cool, realistic dynamic. I also think Daryl and his friendship with Brad is totally realistic. I feel like Sarah's pretty good too. I feel like all the performances are just really good and all the characters play off each other really well. So I think that's my number one thing that I like about the movie is just the ensemble, but particularly I think Chris and Brad's interactions, I think, make the movie for me. I think for me, the slowest part, the part I always get bored on, is where Sarah's dangling out the window. I feel like that's long, just a little long. And just because I've seen it so many times, I'm like, oh, yep, she's still out the window. You know, although there are some funny scenes with the mom in that scene that we always used to quote about. Do you know the name of the caterer?
Yeah, that's right.
Totally dopey parents in 80s movies.
Yes,
exactly. Jeremy, what were your best and worst?
Well, this isn't the best and worst, but just reminds me of the running gag of everything the mom says is being literally happening. Of like, oh, Sarah's probably hanging from the rafters by now. From the rafters, you know.
Classic.
Yeah, it's super like cheeseball, but like in a fun way.
Yeah.
Best and worst. best, I would probably be that weird "Gimme Shelter" needle drop. I don't know why, but like that's just
It was good.
kind of, yeah, it was like a real mood, and it was something that I don't think movies do nowadays.
Mm.
You know, I don't think movies have patience with themselves anymore. So I think that's why I really appreciated it. And the worst, oh no, and also best is there's a very hilarious like joke that I don't think little kids would get why it's so funny, but there's a chop shop scene, and then the crime boss leans over to his lackey and goes, "Get me the Playboy." But you don't know, you don't know that it's a receipt for all their criminal activity.
Right.
You just, and I was just like, oh my God, right here in front of everybody. Like he's like,
right, and he's like, I took it upstairs.
Yeah. And but it's because they're doing the record keeping. Like, but the joke to the audience is that they're just passing around this wrinkly Playboy, and it's just like, oh God. So I think that was a really underrated joke, and I love that the movie just doesn't like draw attention to it; it just moves past it, and like, you know, so that was really funny. And then the worst part, I don't know. There's just moments where like I wish that like Daryl hadn't been checking out Brenda when she's passed out, because he's already had his like redeeming, like, hey, I stick up for my friends, but like in that moment, you're not being a friend to Brenda. You're just, you know, it's just, and maybe that's realistic. Maybe it's like, he's not changed in a day. I don't know. But that was just like, come on, movie. Like, I get what you're doing. You're edgy, but that's already been resolved.
I mean, that was the, you know, this was the era when, like, you know, like date rape was like a funny joke in a lot of comedies. So it's like, this one seems super tame by like comparison. But yes, it doesn't age well.
Sarah and Kyle, did you guys have because I saw it was in the trailer, but it wasn't in the version I watched or Lisa watched, but there's a joke where the prostitute at the frat party asks the kid to like sleep with her.
Yeah, it's in the movie.
Yeah.
Not in the Disney Plus one.
It's okay. Yeah, not something else like
She's
that.
like, we could go someplace and get to know each other. She said something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's not so overt. And I was like,
no,
okay,
it's pretty overt in the real version. Yeah.
So that's another thing that's not MCU related, but they're like, let's not put that in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the same worst too, with like some of the stereotype, that the Thor is a homo line. Like thing, obviously they've tried to address it a little bit, but yeah, you can see like, ooh, it's kind of a product of its time, but also like uncomfortable. Yeah. And then the blue scene, my favorite, just in terms of like starts uncomfortable, ends up with like pure joy, and the intro. Like I said, I'm a big sucker for the intro. That would be my best. Cool. Before we do our final ratings here, just a couple more reactions from the time, and currently. So currently on Rotten Tomatoes, the film still holds an approval rating of 73%. The consensus states sweet and spry, Adventures in Babysitting gets by on its amiable tone. Roger Ebert at the time at the Chicago Sun-Times gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars. He loved the Blues Club sequence, as it said it was the movie's best scene, but criticized the film for not doing more with its black characters, which Jeremy also mentioned earlier. He said the movie had good raw material, but too many unrealized possibilities. Gene Siskel, on the other hand, rated the film 3 out of 4 stars, calling it a genial, warm-hearted romp. He praised the performances of the young cast and called Elizabeth Shue earnestly appealing, but criticized the movie for a lack of social awareness. Both critics compared the film to both Risky Business and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It opened on July 3rd, 1987, against the Dennis Quaid sci-fi comedy Inner Space, which I also love.
I love that movie.
That's another one of our rentals.
Yeah, and 1 week after Sarah's favorite movie, Mel Brooks' Star Wars spoof Spaceballs, Adventures in Babysitting landed in 9th place. But then Jeffrey Katzenberg, who at the time was the head of Disney's Touchstone Pictures, kept it in theaters throughout the summer, and it ultimately became a sleeper hit, not to mention a future sleepover staple, which is true. 34 years later, it becomes a totally watchable charmer stuffed with amusing set pieces, starting with the bedroom dance number to the Crystals' 1963 hit, And Then He Kissed Me. That's a full 3 years before Martin Scorsese using Goodfellas, just saying. The film was adapted. I have a link for this too. It was adapted into an unsold television pilot that aired on CBS in 1989. I have a link to it. I'll put it in the notes. It is. I just dabbled into it. It's of course unwatchably terrible, but it does star Joey Lawrence as Brad and Brian Austin Green as Daryl. So I'll share the link. It's really something.
Excuse me. Wait, what?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I've not seen this.
Exactly. Well, I think it only aired once, and then never got picked up. But I'll share
It's the
link.
same character, so it was supposed to be like a sequel, right?
Yeah, or just like a reimagining of it, whatever. And then I have also not seen. There was
Amazing.
a 2016 loose remake of the film called Adventures in Babysitting on the Disney Channel, starring Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah.
But it was her and Sophia Carson as competing babysitters. I'll pretend it doesn't exist. Maybe people will think it's great, but it's the same name. It's out there. So before we rate it, Jeremy, will you give us a brief crash course on the Strauss scale for rating movies?
Yep, Strauss scale, born out of COVID movie nights on Zoom. 5 means you don't regret watching it, and follow your heart from there. This was a 5 for me at first. I did not regret watching it, but I don't think I would ever watch it again. There was just a lot of moments that I was kind of squirming a little bit, and there's also a lot of jokes that just don't land. Like the delivery is off, or the joke's just not that funny. There's a really weird scene where the Sarah says, "Oh, Brad," about her brother. I remember that line, Lisa, and it was like, that's a weird way to say that. So
I think that's when they thought he was dead.
No, it's when he
or after they pulled him in from the roof, or
yeah, he pulls her in from the roof. But anyway, the movie's just so full of weird little moments where I was like, what was that decision? But definitely though gets a bonus point from talking to you guys. I do actually think that this movie has really good intentions. And we can be like, oh, very problematic, and it might be, but like also they paid like 200 black actors in that scene for the blues bar, you know what I mean? And so like, maybe I guess let them decide if the movie should be made or not, because clearly I think you, like Kyle said, yeah, and there's so much fun in that scene, and it's so good natured that like maybe I'm the idiot. I'm probably the idiot. I'm the idiot. So anyway, it gets a +1 I'm the idiot point. So we're gonna go 6 for this one for me.
Nice. How about Lisa?
Well, so I haven't seen it in years, and so it was great to unearth it again and remember what I loved about it, and what inspired me as a young girl to become a singer. Just a secret, I wanted to be Tina Turner when I was 14 years old. So
nice.
not working out, but kind of halfway there. But so there was that. I probably wouldn't pull it out again in the near future unless I had some reason to do it. And so, but it's definitely a 7 for me. It's not any lower than that. But yeah, I definitely would say a 7.
Nice. How about Sarah?
I'd give it an 8. This is one of those movies where I know it's silly and I know it's dumb, but I can't separate it from my nostalgia around watching this movie, and it was always a joyful experience for me as a kid. It's one I always looked forward to watching, and even rewatching it, I was like, I actually thought it it was better than I remembered. Because it's one of those movies where I feel like it's like an apologetic movie. Like, I actually love this movie, but it's really dumb. I think that's how we framed it last time too. It was like, oh, I'll give you an example of a movie that I like that I think is really dumb, Adventures in Babysitting. And then watching it, I was like, actually the performances are good. They're very real. They're very it's good. It's got very sweet moments. So to me, it was actually better than I remembered, because I remembered it as just oh, it's such a stupid comedy. It's so unrealistic, right? All this dumb stuff happens, right? But then I was like, actually, the performances really hold it together. So I give it an 8.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on an 8. I was almost going to say 9, but I think it's got enough flaws.
That's too much nostalgia. Yeah.
Too much, yeah. But I agree. It's hard. I think even just seeing it again, there are some nostalgic movies that I go back and I'm like, I wish I hadn't done that. This is not the case for this. I think it is a solid, and I enjoy it every time I watch it for sure. Well, cool. Thank you all for coming. Let's end it with, we usually do it anywhere. I know Sarah doesn't have anywhere to plug, unless you want to plug something now. Nowhere to plug for Sarah. How about Lisa? Anywhere we can find you on the web?
No plugs, but I do want to do a quick little shout out, because Jeremy was talking about movies that are not patient. Shout out to Train Dreams on Netflix, which is one of the most movies that I have seen in a very, very long time, and it is very patient. So I just wanted to shout out to that beautiful movie.
Nice. Nice. Awesome. Jeremy.
Warm Catch.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Kyle. It's always fun to do these. And thanks for cheering me up a little bit. So yeah, www.theoldswitcharoo.com. I have a retro gaming podcast. We recently had Kyle on to talk about the analog 3D home console, and we had Sarah on last season and Kyle to talk about Mario Party. And we're gonna have Lisa on one day. I'm sure we're gonna get her on there. It's gonna be a good time, Lisa.
That'd be sweet.
Did you talk about SpongeBob Bikini Bottom one? I think I played that a long time ago.
Here's the thing. It's not on our mission statement. It's not in Nintendo Classics, but I love throwing Mike off. So yeah, we're gonna make that happen. He's gonna absolutely hate it. Yeah, and then also, like I said, we're recording tonight an episode about the horror movie I just mentioned, Return to Silent Hill, which is a very controversial movie. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I heard about that, check it out. It will be uploaded probably late tonight or Monday morning.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And I do a newsletter every Sunday, kylesjunkdrawer.com. Check it out if you don't have it. And thank you for coming. We will figure out what we will do next. We're trying. Sometimes they align with things that are happening topically in the world. So God knows what'll happen by this time next month. We'll see.
Street Fighter the movie.